The great assembly hall of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of gleaming crystalline architecture, its bioluminescent walls pulsing with the rhythm of 1,000 different homeworlds. Representatives from 847 species had gathered for what many considered the most important vote in galactic history. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood alone in the defendant's circle, her human features stark against the bizarre array of tentacles, chitin, scales, and energy forms that surrounded her. The translation matrix hummed as Supreme Arbitrator Zyxtal of the hegemony raised all 6 of his crystalline arms. The motion before us is clear. Zyxtal's voice resonated through quantum frequencies. Species designation, human. Planet designation, Earth Sol System. Threat level, existential. The proposal, immediate enslavement and pacification of the entire species. Elena's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact through peaceful radio transmissions. Within weeks, they'd been invited to observe this very council. Now they stood accused of being too dangerous to exist freely. The evidence is overwhelming, hissed Ambassador Veltar of the Serpentine Collective, her hood flaring with iridescent patterns. In mere centuries, they've developed nuclear weapons that can crack continents, biological warfare capable of sterilizing worlds, and artificial intelligence systems that rival our own. Their historical records show constant warfare, genocide, and environmental destruction on a scale that defies comprehension. They exhibit every characteristic of a berserker species. Clicked the insectoid hive queen Zura, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's light like fractured rainbows. Rapid technological advancement combined with uncontrolled aggression and an apparent inability to achieve lasting peace. The Andromedans displayed these same patterns 50,000 years ago before they nearly consumed 3 star systems. We cannot repeat such a catastrophic oversight. The energy beings of Proxima Centauri pulsed with agreement, their plasma forms shifting through the electromagnetic spectrum. Even the peaceful plant people of Verdania rustled their leaves in what Elena had learned was their expression of deep concern. Elena stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the translation field. Honored representatives, yes, humanity has a violent and troubled past. We do not deny the darkness in our history, but we've also shown remarkable capacity for growth, cooperation, and moral evolution. In the past century alone, we've begun to solve global poverty, started reversing climate change, and developed international cooperation on unprecedented scales. Silence! Zyxtal's mental force pressed against Elena's mind like a crushing weight. The decision has been made through proper democratic channels. Each species has cast their vote according to the evidence presented. The massive holographic display screen flickered to life above the assembly, showing the tally in burning letters that seemed to sear themselves into Elena's vision. For enslavement, 847 species. Against, 0 species. ABSTIN, 0 species. Elena's blood ran cold as ice water. Every single species in the galaxy, from the ancient wise energy beings of Proxima Centauri to the peaceful plant people of Verdania, from the logical machine minds of Kepler 442b to the empathic telepaths of the vegan system, had voted to enslave her entire species. The verdict is unanimous and legally binding, Zyxtal declared, his 6 arms spreading wide in a gesture of finality. Humanity will be fitted with neural inhibitor implants, relocated to designated work colonies across 17 different star systems, and their homeworld will be stripped of all military technology. Their reproductive rights will be strictly controlled through genetic monitoring to prevent future insurgency attempts. The chamber filled with the multilingual sounds of approval. Clicks, hisses, harmonic tones, and electromagnetic pulses that created a symphony of satisfied justice. Elena felt the weight of 8 billion souls pressing down on her shoulders. She was the only human who would ever stand free in this chamber, the only voice her species would ever have in galactic affairs. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly, but her voice somehow carried across the vast hall despite its low volume. "We could have been your greatest allies. We could have brought innovation, creativity, and perspectives you've never imagined. We could have helped you explore frontiers of science and philosophy that your stable, peaceful civilizations might never reach alone. Or your greatest destroyers, rumbled the massive stone-like delegate from Titan Prime, his voice like grinding continents. Your own history proves that peaceful coexistence with humans is impossible. Better to ensure galactic safety than risk extinction. As the energy barriers began to form around Elena, crackling with the power to contain even the most exotic forms of matter, she looked up at the vast assembly one last time. Hundreds of alien faces stared back at her, some with expressions she could read as pity, others showing cold calculation, and many displaying what she recognized as fear. "Remember this moment," she said, her words echoing off the crystalline walls. "Remember that you had a choice. Remember that you chose fear over hope, safety over growth, control over freedom." She paused, and something in her voice made even the most alien representatives lean forward. "And remember that every choice has consequences. What you do to us today will echo through the galaxy for generations to come." The containment field activated with a sound like reality tearing, and Elena Rodriguez, the last free human ambassador, disappeared into galactic custody, leaving behind only the fading echo of her words and the uncomfortable sensation that history had just taken a very dangerous turn. 6 months after the galactic vote, Earth resembled a planet under siege. Massive orbital platforms blotted out the sun over major metropolitan areas, their dark silhouettes casting perpetual twilight across once vibrant cities. Sleek alien dropships moved in precise formations, ferrying captured humans to sterile processing centers that had sprung up like malignant tumors across every continent. The neural inhibitor program was proceeding ahead of schedule. Nearly 40% of humanity had been pacified and shipped off-world to work colonies scattered across 17 different star systems. But beneath the ruins of what had once been New York City, in the labyrinthine network of abandoned subway tunnels that the aliens had dismissed as irrelevant infrastructure, the spark of human resistance burned bright and dangerous. Dr. Marcus Webb hunched over a jury-rigged quantum computer that shouldn't have existed, his bloodshot eyes reflecting the ghostly blue glow of holographic interfaces as his fingers danced across controls cobbled together from salvaged alien technology and repurposed human electronics. Around him, the last remnants of free humanity worked in desperate, focused silence, each person knowing that discovery meant worse than death. "How much longer, Doc?" whispered Agent Lisa Park, her voice barely audible above the hum of improvised machinery. The former NSA operative had become their best extraction specialist, her face bearing the fresh scars of 3 failed rescue attempts that had saved exactly 47 people at the cost of everything she'd once believed about operational security. "Almost there," Marcus muttered, not looking up from his work. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the tunnel's chill. The alien neural inhibitors use quantum entanglement fields to suppress higher brain functions, specifically targeting the neural clusters responsible for abstract thinking, creativity, and what they call chaotic cognitive processes. But they made one critical error in their assumptions. In the corner, General James Mitchell methodically cleaned his modified plasma rifle with movements that spoke of decades of military precision. The old soldier's hands never shook, but his eyes held the hollow grief of a man who'd watched his 2 sons disappear into alien transport ships during the initial roundups. "What kind of error?" Mitchell asked, his voice carrying the weight of command even in their desperate circumstances. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes gleaming with something that walked the razor's edge between brilliance and madness. "They don't understand human creativity. Our brains are fundamentally different from every other species they've encountered. Chaotic, non-linear. We don't think in the orderly, logical patterns they expect." "Is that why the inhibitors don't work on everyone?" asked Captain Anna Volkov, the former Russian pilot who'd single-handedly shot down 6 alien transports before her squadron was wiped out. She'd been living underground for 4 months now, and her eyes had developed the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen too much. "Exactly." Marcus pulled up a 3-dimensional holographic brain scan that rotated slowly in the air between them. "About 15% of humans show natural resistance to the inhibitors. Their neural pathways are so fundamentally different that the alien technology simply can't map them properly. But more importantly," he switched to another scan, this one showing a brain that seemed to pulse with electric fire, neural pathways blazing in patterns that defied conventional neuroscience. I think I've figured out how to not just reverse the inhibitor process, but to use their own technology against them. This is a human brain under full inhibitor control, dulled, pacified, controllable. And this, the display changed to show the same brain structure, but now it blazed like a star, connections firing in impossible configurations, is the same brain after my enhancement treatment. The gathered resistance fighters leaned closer, studying the impossible display with growing excitement and horror. Not only are the inhibitors completely neutralized, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger with each word, but cognitive function is enhanced far beyond baseline human levels. Faster processing speed, improved pattern recognition, expanded memory capacity that approaches perfect recall, and... He hesitated, as if afraid to voice what he'd discovered. And what? General Mitchell prompted, setting down his weapon. Something else. Something I don't fully understand yet. The enhanced subjects report entirely new forms of perception. They claim they can sense quantum fluctuations directly, perceive electromagnetic fields as colors, and in some cases, Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper, they say they can feel other people's thoughts. Lisa Park's scarred face went pale. How many people have you tested this on? 47 volunteers from resistance cells in London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. All successful reversals, 0 fatalities, and the effects appear to be permanent. Marcus's voice grew harder, edged with something that might have been anticipation or terror. But there's more. The enhancement appears to be transmissible through normal reproduction. Enhanced humans who have children pass the enhancement to their offspring. And in some cases, the children show even greater cognitive enhancement than their parents. Captain Volkov laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. The aliens wanted to domesticate us, turn us into their perfect little slaves. Instead, they might have triggered our evolution into something beyond their comprehension. It gets better, Marcus said, pulling up streams of intercepted alien communications. I've been monitoring their quantum networks using modified inhibitor technology. They're reporting anomalous human behavior across multiple work colonies. Enhanced humans are reverse engineering alien technology faster than their instructors can teach it. Some colonies are reporting that humans are improving their assigned tasks beyond designed parameters. The implications hung in the recycled air like a promise and a threat. General Mitchell stood slowly, his old joints protesting but his mind sharp as ever. Doctor, how long would it take you to synthesize enough of this enhancement treatment for everyone still free on Earth? With our current resources and manufacturing capabilities? 6 months, maybe 8. But if we could capture one of their pharmaceutical production facilities and repurpose their equipment. 2 weeks, Mitchell finished, his tactical mind already working through the possibilities. I'll start planning the raid. As the group began to disperse to their various tasks, weapons maintenance, communication monitoring, recruitment of new resistance cells, none of them noticed the small quantum fluctuation detector that Marcus had discreetly positioned near his workstation. It had been beeping steadily for the past 6 hours, indicating massive quantum disturbances throughout the entire solar system. Something was coming, something unprecedented and enormous. And for the first time since the alien invasion had begun, Dr. Marcus Webb allowed himself to smile. The raid on the alien pharmaceutical facility in the Nevada desert went better than anyone had dared hope. What should have been a suicide mission against overwhelming odds turned into something that resembled a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. The enhanced humans moved through the facility's supposedly impregnable defenses like they could predict every countermeasure, every security protocol, every desperate alien response before it happened. Dr. Marcus Webb watched through high-powered binoculars from a rocky ridge 2 kilometers away, his enhanced mind processing dozens of data streams simultaneously as Captain Volkov's team systematically dismantled security systems that should have been impossible for any human to understand, let alone hack with salvaged equipment and desperate improvisation. How the hell are they doing that? Whispered General Mitchell beside him, his weathered face reflecting a mixture of pride and unease, as he watched his soldiers perform what could only be described as technological miracles. "I think." Marcus lowered his binoculars, his enhanced perception allowing him to continue observing the operation through quantum field fluctuations invisible to normal human senses. "I think the enhancement process is accelerating exponentially. Each new generation of treatment is producing stronger results than the last. The volunteers from this morning's batch are showing cognitive improvements that surpass even our most optimistic projections." Below them in the alien facility, Agent Lisa Park stood before a quantum computer terminal that would have required years of specialized training for any galactic species to operate. Instead, she interfaced with it directly, her scarred hands moving in patterns that seemed to bend space-time around her fingertips. Streams of data flowed across holographic displays in languages that humanity had learned only months ago, yet she absorbed and redirected the information at speeds that made even the facility's AI systems lag behind her processing capacity. "Marcus," General Mitchell's voice carried a note of genuine concern. "Look at her eyes." Through his enhanced vision, Marcus could see that Lisa's eyes had developed a faint golden luminescence, the same ethereal glow he'd started noticing in all the enhanced humans over the past few weeks. But more than that, he could sense something else, something that made his own enhanced mind recoil in a mixture of awe and primitive fear. She wasn't just reading the alien computer systems. She was thinking with them, using their quantum processors as extensions of her own consciousness, treating advanced galactic technology like additional organs in an expanded nervous system. The mission was completed in under 40 minutes, a feat that should have taken days even with perfect intelligence and overwhelming force. The team extracted not just the pharmaceutical equipment they'd come for, but also the facility's entire quantum computer core, a small alien database containing classified information, and what appeared to be the personal research files of the facility's chief scientist. 6 hours later, in their underground laboratory complex hidden beneath the ruins of Manhattan, Marcus stared at the translated data from the alien database with growing shock and something that might have been elation. "General, you need to see this immediately." Mitchell approached the display terminal, where streams of galactic text scrolled past in real-time translation, each line more disturbing than the last. "Project documentation, Human Pacification Initiative," Mitchell read aloud, his voice growing tighter with each word. "Critical warning. Unexpected results. Neural inhibitor interaction with human brain chemistry producing severe inverse effects in 23.7% of test subjects. Recommend immediate termination of enhancement program and sterilization protocols for affected populations." He stopped reading, his face pale. "Marcus, this report is dated 3 weeks ago. Keep reading. It gets much better. Enhanced humans demonstrating technology assimilation rates 847% above established galactic standard. Subjects exhibit unprecedented pattern recognition abilities and appear capable of intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics principles that typically require decades of specialized education. Request immediate deployment of scientific advisory team to study." Mitchell's voice cracked. "Quantum signature analysis suggests enhanced humans are spontaneously developing psionic capabilities that violate several fundamental laws of physics as currently understood." Marcus pulled up another document, his enhanced fingers dancing across the holographic interface with inhuman precision. "This one's even more illuminating. It's a priority communication to the Galactic Council from the local garrison commander." The message materialized on screen in urgent, blood-red text. "Priority alert. Human enhancement crisis. Classification. Existential threat level 9. The neural pacification program has catastrophically backfired beyond all predictive models. Enhanced humans are not only completely immune to our control systems but appear to be developing abilities that fundamentally challenge our understanding of consciousness, matter, and energy interaction. They are reverse engineering our most advanced technology within hours of first exposure. Some subjects appear capable of direct quantum field manipulation without technological assistance. Request immediate evacuation authorization for all non-essential personnel. These beings are becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. Personal note. Sir, they're starting to read our minds, and I don't think they need to be in the same room to do it. General Mitchell was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. How many enhanced humans do we have now, globally? Including the resistance cells, the work colonies that have broken free using our treatment, and the new volunteers from today's raids? Marcus consulted his quantum-linked database. Approximately 200,000 and growing exponentially. Every successful enhancement seems to make the process more effective for the next subject. And how many aliens currently on Earth? According to their own communications? About 50,000 across all garrison forces, plus maybe 15,000 technical specialists and administrators. Mitchell smiled grimly, the expression transforming his weathered features into something predatory. Doctor, I think it's time we paid a visit to their orbital command station. Sir, that station is 400 kilometers above the surface, protected by energy shields that can deflect nuclear weapons, and armed with enough firepower to crack continental plates. Yes, Mitchell said, his eyes reflecting the same golden glow that now marked all enhanced humans. But can they stop someone who can bend quantum reality with their thoughts? As if summoned by his words, Captain Anna Volkov materialized in the laboratory. Not walked in, not entered through the door, but simply appeared in a shimmer of displaced air that made reality itself seem uncertain. She moved with an eerie, fluid grace that suggested she was no longer entirely bound by conventional physics, and her golden eyes seemed to look through dimensions that normal humans couldn't perceive. General, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air vibrate in impossible patterns. We need to talk. I've been in direct neural contact with the enhanced humans in the orbital work camps. Contact? How? Volkov tilted her head slightly, and for a moment Marcus could swear he saw space itself bend around her like light around a black hole. We're connected now. All of us. The enhancement doesn't just improve individual capabilities. It's creating a collective consciousness network that spans across space and time. She gestured casually, and the air above her palm began to shimmer and fold. Slowly, a perfect three-dimensional hologram of the alien orbital station materialized, rotating to show every detail of its construction, every weakness in its defenses, every corridor and control room. Their quantum shielding is designed to repel conventional energy and matter, Volkov explained with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. But it's completely permeable to consciousness itself. General Mitchell leaned forward, his enhanced mind already grasping the implications. Meaning, General, that we don't need to break into their station. Volkov's smile was both beautiful and terrifying, like watching an angel contemplate war. We can simply think ourselves inside it. Supreme Commander ZYX Tal of the Occupation Forces stood frozen before the tactical display in his orbital command center, his 6 crystalline arms trembling with what his species called anticipatory doom, a physiological response reserved for threats that defied all logical comprehension. The holographic Earth rotating below should have been showing a peaceful, subjugated world dotted with orderly work camps and compliant human populations. Instead, nearly half the planet pulsed with chaotic energy signatures that made his quantum sensors scream warnings in 17 different alien languages. Report, he commanded his aide, Subcommander Velnok, though his voice carried undertones of dread that no amount of military discipline could mask. Sir, we've lost contact with 73% of our ground installations in the past 48 hours. The enhanced humans appear to be operating with complete technological integration of our systems. They're not just using our equipment, they're somehow improving it beyond original design specifications. Velnok's normally steady tentacles writhed with nervous energy. Sir, some of the technology they're producing shouldn't be theoretically possible according to our understanding of physics. ZYXDAL's primary eyes focused on a specific energy reading that seemed to pulse with malevolent intent over the North American continent. What is that massive quantum disturbance? It's reading energy levels comparable to a small star. Unknown origin, sir. It began approximately 18 hours ago and has been growing exponentially since then. Our long-range sensors can't penetrate whatever field they're generating, but the quantum resonance patterns suggest. Velnok hesitated, his voice dropping to a whisper of fear. Suggest what? Sub-Commander? Sir, it appears to be some kind of construction project. The energy patterns indicate they're building something using pure quantum manipulation, matter creation and spatial distortion on a scale we've never encountered. They're not using tools or technology, sir. They're reshaping reality through conscious will alone. Before ZYXTAL could formulate a response, every alarm system in the command center began screaming simultaneously. The lights flickered between normal illumination and emergency red, gravity fluctuated wildly, and for one terrifying moment, the artificial atmosphere itself seemed to forget how to support alien life. Commander! His tactical officer's voice cracked with barely controlled panic. Unauthorized presences detected in sectors 7, 12, and 15. They're not showing up on any of our scanning systems, but the quantum field detectors are going insane. Impossible. Our shields are operating at maximum efficiency. Sir, the shields are intact and functioning perfectly. They're not coming through the shields or around them. According to our instruments, they're just manifesting inside our protected areas. ZYXTAL spun toward the main corridor. His combat instincts honed by decades of military service screaming warnings that his rational mind couldn't quite process. The air began to shimmer like heat waves, reality itself seeming to bend and fold in ways that violated several fundamental laws of physics. Slowly, like figures emerging from underwater or stepping through dimensional barriers, 3 human forms materialized in his command center. He recognized the woman in the lead, Captain Anna Volkov, the former Russian pilot who had single-handedly destroyed 6 of their transport ships during the initial invasion. But she was fundamentally changed. Her eyes burned with golden fire that seemed to pierce through matter itself. Space appeared to bend slightly around her presence, and she radiated an energy that made ZYXTAL's quantum-sensitive biology recoil in primitive terror. The 2 humans flanking her projected the same impossible aura, beings who had transcended the normal limitations of biological existence while somehow remaining entirely, recognizably human. Supreme Commander ZYXTAL, Volkov said, her voice somehow speaking directly into his mind despite using normal human vocal cords. The translation was perfect, but beneath the words he could sense concepts and ideas that his species had no framework to understand. We need to discuss the future of this occupation, and the future of galactic civilization. Every weapon system in the command center swiveled toward the intruders with mechanical precision, but ZYXTAL raised a restraining arm. Something about the human's presence. Some quantum signature that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to survival instincts developed over millions of years of evolution, suggested that conventional weapons would be not just inadequate but laughably irrelevant. "How did you penetrate our shields?" he demanded, though part of him already suspected the answer would reshape his understanding of reality. "Your shields are quite impressive," replied one of Volkov's companions, a young man whose very presence made the quantum fields fluctuate in patterns that hurt to observe. "They protect excellently against matter and energy, even exotic forms we hadn't encountered before. But consciousness isn't matter or energy, Commander. It's something far more fundamental, the substrate upon which reality itself is built." "What do you want?" ZYXTAL asked, though he dreaded the answer. Volkov stepped forward, and suddenly ZYXTAL felt his own mental defenses, psychic barriers developed over centuries of telepathic combat training, strain against an alien pressure that felt like standing at the edge of an infinite ocean. "We want you to leave, Commander. All of you. Withdraw from human space immediately and never return." "And if we refuse?" he managed to ask, though his voice sounded small and fragile even to his own ears. The golden-eyed woman smiled with what appeared to be genuine sadness, and suddenly ZYXTAL found himself seeing through her eyes. Not just her visual perspective, but her perception of reality itself. He saw the quantum foam underlying spacetime, witnessed the mathematical structures that governed gravity and electromagnetism as living, breathing entities, observed the delicate web of consciousness that connected every thinking being in the universe like neurons in a vast cosmic brain. And he saw what humanity had become. "Commander," Volkov said with gentle, terrifying certainty, 3 days ago, Enhanced humans in the Alpha Centauri work camps began spontaneously developing faster-than-light travel without ships or technology. Pure consciousness translocation across interstellar distances. Yesterday, our people in the Vega system started manipulating stellar fusion rates, adjusting the energy output of entire stars through focused thought. And this morning, she gestured toward the viewport showing Earth below, where the mysterious energy disturbance continued to grow. This morning, we finished building our first planet-scale quantum consciousness matrix. It's not made of circuits or crystals or any technology you would recognize, Commander. It's made of living human awareness, networked across 8 billion minds and growing stronger every moment. ZYXDAL's translator AI struggled desperately with the next concepts she projected into his mind. Ideas so alien to galactic thought that no known language contained adequate words to express them. "We're not angry with you," Volkov continued, her voice carrying harmonics of cosmic compassion that made his exoskeleton ache. "Anger is a primitive emotion we're rapidly evolving beyond. But we are disappointed. You could have been our partners in exploring the infinite mysteries of existence. Instead, you chose to be an obstacle to growth." The young man beside her spoke up, his words carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "We've already made contact with the 17 species in this galaxy that voted against our enslavement in secret sessions. They're quite interested in forming a new kind of alliance, one based on consciousness expansion rather than territorial control." ZYXDAL's mind reeled, his carefully ordered worldview crumbling. "There were no secret votes against your enslavement. The official tally was unanimous." "The public tally was unanimous," Volkov corrected with patient gentleness. "But consciousness leaves quantum traces, Commander. We can read the resonance echoes of every thought that occurred during that vote, every secret doubt, every moment of moral conflict. 17 species voted their conscience in private while casting false votes in public to avoid social persecution." "Impossible!" The Verdanian plant people, the energy beings of Proxima Centauri, the crystalline hive minds of Kepler 442b, the empathic telepaths of the vegan colonies. They all recognized what we could become with proper nurturing. What we're becoming despite your interference. Volkov's expression grew infinitely sad. They were overruled by fear and the tyranny of consensus. ZYXTAL looked around his command center at his terrified crew, seeing his own helplessness reflected in their alien faces. What are you becoming?" "Something entirely new," Volkov said with simple finality. "Something the universe has never seen before, but has always been waiting for. We're not ascending to higher dimensions or becoming pure energy like the ancient myths describe. We're staying right here in normal space and time, but we're becoming conscious of reality's deepest quantum foundations." "And that makes you gods?" "No, Commander." Volkov's smile held the warmth of cosmic understanding. "It makes us gardeners." Before he could ask what she meant, Volkov and her companions began to fade from view like morning mist. 24 hours, Commander." Her voice echoed as she disappeared into quantum uncertainty. "Remove all occupation forces from human space. Tell the Galactic Council that humanity extends an invitation to peaceful contact and trade with any species willing to treat us as equals rather than threats." "And if the Council refuses?" ZYXTAL called out desperately. The last thing he saw was Volkov's profoundly sad smile. "Then ask them to remember what happened to the last species that tried to cage a force of nature, Commander. Ask them to remember the Andromedans." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute chaos, representatives from 847 species crowding into the Great Assembly Hall like refugees fleeing an approaching storm. The bioluminescent walls pulsed erratically with the collective panic of 1,000 different homeworlds, creating a strobing light show that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Supreme Arbitrator ZYXTAL stood at the central podium, his 6 crystalline arms trembling so violently that the quantum microphones struggled to maintain stable translation matrices. "The occupation of Earth has been terminated," he announced, his normally commanding voice barely maintaining coherence as harmonic frequencies cracked with undisguised terror. "All garrison forces have been withdrawn to minimum safe distance of 50 light-years from human space." The hall erupted in a cacophony that defied description. Clicks, hisses, telepathic bursts, harmonic frequencies, electromagnetic pulses, and communication methods that existed in dimensions beyond normal perception. Hundreds of species tried to speak simultaneously, their collective fear creating psychic feedback loops that threatened to shatter the assembly's protective barriers. Silence! HFY's mental force pressed against the assembly with desperate authority. The situation is far worse than our worst-case projections anticipated. The humans have not merely broken free of their constraints, they have transcended every known limitation of biological existence. Ambassador Veltar of the Serpentine Collective raised her hood, her scales shifting through colors that indicated extreme agitation. Transcended how, exactly? They're still bound by the same physical laws that govern the rest of the universe. Are they not? Are they? HFY activated the central holographic display, showing a recording from his orbital command station that had been classified at the highest security levels. The assembled delegates watched in growing horror as human figures simply materialized inside supposedly impregnable quantum shields, bypassing every defense mechanism developed over millions of years of galactic warfare. This was recorded 6 days ago, HFY continued, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast hall. Since then, enhanced humans have appeared simultaneously on 17 different worlds across the galaxy, spanning distances that should require decades of faster-than-light travel. They're not using ships, transporters, or any technology we can identify. They simply arrive. The crystalline delegate from Titan Prime rumbled with deep geological concern, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. What do they want from us? Tribute? Submission? Territory? That's what makes this so terrifying, HFY said quietly. They claim to want peaceful coexistence. They've offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and technological cooperation to any species willing to engage with them as equals rather than subjects. Trap! Screeched the insectoid hive queen Zura, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's chaotic light like fractured prisms. Classic apex predator behavior. They offer gifts and cooperation before the inevitable slaughter. Perhaps, HFY conceded. But consider this data carefully before dismissing their motives. The display shifted to show a galaxy-wide summary that made several delegates physically recoil from its implications. In the past week alone, human-enhanced technology has revolutionized agriculture on 3 drought-stricken worlds, providing sustainable food production that could support populations for millennia. They've synthesized a cure for the Red Plague that has decimated the Altarian colonies for over 2 centuries, distributing it freely without requesting compensation. They've provided clean energy solutions to 12 different species, including reactor designs that produce no waste products and require no rare materials. The hall fell into stunned silence as the implications settled into their collective consciousness. They're not demanding tribute, territory, or submission, HFY continued, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. They're simply helping, without being asked, without contracts or negotiations. When questioned about their motivations, they consistently respond that they're tending the garden of consciousness. Ambassador Thekmol of the ancient vegan confederacy spoke for the first time in the session, his deep voice resonating with the wisdom of millennia. His people were among the oldest spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy, having achieved interstellar travel when most current species were still discovering agriculture. Arbitrator HFY, he said with the gravity of someone who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, show them the classified long-range sensor data. They need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. HFY hesitated, his training warring with the ancient vegan's implicit authority. Honored Elder, that information is classified at the highest levels of galactic security. Show them. Thekmol's mental voice carried the weight of cosmic authority that brooked no argument. The holographic display changed to show a real-time galactic map, its spiral arms familiar to every delegate present. Slowly, like a virus spreading through a computer system, thousands of golden dots began appearing across every sector, each one representing a human presence detected by the galaxy's most sensitive deep space sensors. The silence that followed was the silence of civilizations confronting their own obsolescence. "My friends," Thekmol said with profound gravity, "in exactly 1 week, these humans have achieved what it took our oldest civilizations millennia to accomplish. They have established a presence throughout the entire galaxy. Not through conquest or colonization, but through pure consciousness projection." The shocked silence was broken by a new voice, young, female, and speaking in perfect galactic standard despite originating from a species that had learned the language only months ago. "Hello, honored representatives. Please don't be afraid." Every head, sensory cluster, optical array, and consciousness detection system in the hall turned toward the source. Standing in the observer's gallery, in a section that had been empty and secured moments before, was a young human woman who appeared to be in her 20s by their species standards. She possessed the same golden luminescence in her eyes that marked all enhanced humans, but her presence radiated something more. A sense of infinite patience and compassion that made several empathic species weep involuntarily. "My name is Elena Rodriguez," she said, stepping forward to the edge of the gallery with movements that seemed to bend space-time around her. "Some of you may remember me from our last meeting." Zyxtal's voice cracked with impossible realization. "You were executed after the enslavement vote. I personally witnessed your termination in our detention facility." Elena smiled with profound sadness and infinite understanding. "You're correct. My physical body died in your facility 3 days after the trial. But consciousness, as we've learned, is far more durable and fundamental than mere flesh and bone. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a quantum shockwave. If humans could survive physical death itself, if their consciousness could persist and even strengthen beyond biological constraints. I'm not here to threaten, intimidate, or demand retribution," Elena continued, her voice carrying easily across the vast hall with harmonics that bypassed normal hearing and spoke directly to the soul. "I'm here because many of you are trapped by fear, and fear has a tendency to make intelligent beings do terrible things. Things they regret deeply when clarity returns." She gestured casually, and suddenly the hall's central space filled with holographic images of unprecedented beauty. Scenes from across the galaxy showing transformation beyond imagination. "This is Kepler 442b, where my people helped the crystalline hive minds develop quantum computing systems that don't require rare earth minerals and can process information at the speed of thought itself." The image shifted to show crystalline beings working alongside humans in laboratories that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "This is Proxima Centauri, where we're collaborating with the energy beings to explore the fundamental relationship between consciousness and the quantum vacuum. Research that may lead to understanding the true nature of existence itself." Another shift revealed beings of pure energy dancing with human consciousness in patterns that created new forms of matter. "This is Verdania, where we've helped the plant people extend their neural root networks across interstellar distances, creating a living communications grid that spans multiple star systems and operates faster than light." The images continued, dozens of worlds, hundreds of species, all showing humans and aliens working together on projects that stretched the boundaries of possibility and redefined the concept of collaboration. "We're not your conquerors," Elena said, her voice growing warm with genuine affection that made even the most hostile delegates feel a stirring of hope. "We're not your enemies or your competition. We're not even your superiors, despite what our abilities might suggest." Her expression radiated cosmic understanding. "We're your gardeners, your partners in cultivation. We're here to help consciousness grow and flourish throughout the universe." Hive Queen Zura clicked with desperate aggression. "And what if we don't want your help? What if we demand that you leave us alone to develop naturally?" Elena's expression grew infinitely sad, like a parent watching a beloved child make a painful but necessary mistake. "Then we'll respect that choice absolutely. Free will is the most fundamental force in existence, more basic than gravity, more essential than the strong nuclear force. We will never force our presence or assistance on anyone." "But," ancient Thekmol prompted, sensing the unspoken continuation with the wisdom of eons. "But," Elena said softly, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic loneliness. The universe is vast and dark and cold and unimaginably lonely. Conscious life is the rarest and most precious phenomenon in all of creation. Every species that chooses isolation, every civilization that turns inward instead of reaching out, makes the cosmos a little bit smaller, a little bit dimmer, a little bit more empty. She looked directly at ZYXTAL with eyes that seemed to contain the wisdom of stars. You voted to enslave us because you were afraid we'd become destroyers of worlds. Instead, we became gardeners of consciousness. Now I ask you, what will you choose to become? The hall remained silent for a long moment that stretched toward eternity. Then, slowly, the ancient Thekmol rose from his position with the gravity of cosmic decision. I move, he said with formal authority that resonated through quantum dimensions, to rescind the vote for human enslavement and extend full diplomatic recognition to the human consciousness collective as sovereign equals. Seconded, came a harmonious voice from the Verdanian section. Thirded, added the ethereal tones of the Proximan delegate. Fourth, rumbled the crystalline beings of Kepler 442b. Within minutes, 17 species had voiced their support, the same 17 that Elena claimed had voted against enslavement in secret sessions, now finally free to speak their true convictions. ZYXTAL looked around the hall at the remaining representatives, reading the complex emotions playing across hundreds of alien faces. Many appeared uncertain, caught between old fears and new possibilities. Others radiated open hostility born of pride and territorial instinct. A significant number seemed thoughtful, processing implications that would reshape their understanding of existence itself. All in favor of the motion? He called formally. 239 hands, tentacles, energy fields, quantum signatures, and consciousness projections rose in approval. Opposed? 425 negative responses registered across multiple dimensions of reality. Abstaining? 183 species chose to reserve judgment. Elena nodded slowly, her expression reflecting neither surprise nor disappointment. A good beginning, she said with infinite patience. Democracy is a process of growth, not a single moment of decision. We'll be here when you're ready. All of you. As she began to fade from view like morning mist touched by sunlight, ZYXTAL called out with desperate urgency. Wait, what happens now? What are your intentions toward the species that still oppose you? Elena's voice echoed as she dissolved into quantum uncertainty, carrying promises and possibilities beyond imagination. The same thing that happens to every seed in a garden, honored arbitrator. We'll give them time, space, proper nutrients, and gentle encouragement to grow. And someday, when each species is ready in their own time and their own way, they'll bloom into something more beautiful than they ever imagined possible. The hall was left in profound silence, each representative grappling with the same fundamental question that would reshape galactic civilization. What do you do when the monsters you tried to create turn out to be angels offering wings? 2 years after the failed enslavement of humanity, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new equilibrium that defied every previous model of interstellar relations. The human consciousness collective had established peaceful, thriving partnerships with 239 species, while 425 others maintained varying degrees of hostility, suspicion, or deliberate isolation. The remaining 183 species watched and waited in careful neutrality, caught between ancient fears and growing curiosity about these transformed humans who seemed to rewrite the rules of existence with every passing day. Commander ZYXTAL, now serving as the Galactic Council's official liaison to humanity after undergoing his own voluntary consciousness enhancement, stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive space habitat that shouldn't have been possible to construct. The station existed in a stable orbit between dimensions, jointly built by humans and their alien allies using technologies that merged consciousness-based engineering with quantum manipulation on a scale that made traditional physics textbooks obsolete. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, he watched something that challenged his enhanced understanding of reality itself. A human child, no more than 8 years old by their species' reckoning, was playing in the zero-gravity recreation area with companions that represented the future of galactic civilization. But instead of using the standard magnetic boot systems or propulsion packs, she was floating through space by pure conscious intent, her young mind directly manipulating gravitational fields with the casual ease of a master artist wielding a paintbrush. "Remarkable, isn't it?" came a familiar voice. ZYX turned to find Dr. Marcus Webb approaching, the human scientist who had first cracked the neural inhibitor code and inadvertently triggered humanity's evolutionary leap. The man appeared physically unchanged from their first meeting 2 years ago, except for the golden luminescence that now characterized all enhanced beings and an aura of profound wisdom that seemed to emanate from his very presence. "Dr. Webb, I was reviewing the quarterly population reports. The demographic numbers are deeply concerning from a traditional perspective." Marcus raised an eyebrow with gentle amusement. "Concerning in what way, my friend? In 2 years, your species has expanded from 8 billion individuals to nearly 12 billion. But according to our most advanced biological models, human gestation periods and maturation rates shouldn't allow for such exponential growth, even accounting for improved medical technology." "Ah," Marcus smiled with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a curious child. "You're still thinking in terms of traditional biological reproduction. We've moved far beyond those limitations." ZYX felt the familiar tingle of expanded awareness that accompanied truly paradigm-shifting information. "Meaning what, exactly?" "Consciousness can be shared, merged, and multiplied in ways that transcend physical constraints," Marcus explained, his words carrying harmonic undertones that spoke directly to ZYX enhanced perception. "When two enhanced humans choose to create new life, they don't just combine genetic material in the old biological sense. They blend their quantum consciousness patterns, creating offspring that develop at accelerated rates both physically and mentally, while retaining perfect stability and emotional balance." Through the viewport, ZYX watched as the human child was joined by a young Verdanian plant being whose photosynthetic tendrils glowed with inner light, and a crystalline offspring from Titan Prime whose geometric form pulsed with mathematical harmonies. All three were moving through space using pure mental force, their different forms of consciousness somehow harmonizing into something greater than the sum of their individual capabilities. "They're not just playing together," ZYX realized with growing wonder. "They're learning to think as a collective entity while maintaining their individual identities. The next generation doesn't perceive species barriers the way our generations do," Marcus confirmed, his voice carrying notes of profound hope. "To them, consciousness is consciousness, regardless of the biological, crystalline, or energy-based substrate it emerges from. They're creating the first truly universal language. Not words or symbols, but direct mind-to-mind communication that transcends all cultural and physiological differences. Doctor, I need to ask you something directly, and I hope you'll answer with complete honesty. What exactly are your people planning for the future of galactic civilization?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the children as they began creating complex geometric patterns in space. Not with tools or technology, but by manipulating matter and energy through coordinated conscious intent. "Are you familiar with the agricultural concept of a garden reaching full maturity?" he asked finally. "Please explain." "When you first plant a garden, you start with individual seeds scattered across prepared soil. You water them carefully, nurture them through vulnerable stages, protect them from environmental threats and predators. Gradually, they grow into distinct plants, each beautiful and valuable in its own unique way." ZYX listened intently, sensing deeper implications in the seemingly simple metaphor. "But a truly mature garden becomes something transcendent, more than the sum of its individual parts. The plants begin to support each other in symbiotic relationships. Deeper-rooted species provide nutrients to shallow-rooted ones through underground networks. Tall plants create protective shade for smaller, more delicate species. Flowering plants attract pollinators that benefit the entire ecosystem. The garden becomes a living, breathing entity that perpetuates and improves itself. And humanity sees itself as what in this metaphor? The gardener or part of the garden?" "Both," Marcus said with simple profundity. We're tending a garden of consciousness that will eventually span the entire observable universe. But we're also flowering plants within that same garden, dependent on and contributing to the greater whole. Before ZYXTAL could formulate a response, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station with harmonics that bypassed normal hearing and spoke directly to enhanced consciousness. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in colors that existed beyond the normal electromagnetic spectrum, and the intercom crackled with urgency that transcended mere sound. All stations, code Amber Alert. Massive, unidentified vessel approaching the station at velocity exceeding known physics. Configuration unknown. Recommend immediate defensive preparations. Marcus and ZYXTAL rushed to the nearest command center, where holographic displays showed something that defied every known category of spacecraft or natural phenomenon. The approaching object was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, but its hull seemed to absorb light, matter, and energy rather than reflect them, creating a void in space that hurt to observe directly. Energy signature suggests technology at least 50,000 years in advance of current galactic standard, reported the station's enhanced AI, its voice carrying undertones of awe and uncertainty. Quantum resonance patterns indicate consciousness-based engineering, similar to our own but orders of magnitude more sophisticated. Origins, ZYXTAL demanded, his enhanced mind racing through thousands of possible scenarios. Unknown. The vessel appears to have emerged from deep space beyond the galactic rim, possibly from another galaxy entirely. But, Commander, the AI paused. I'm detecting quantum echoes suggesting this ship has been observing our development for an extended period. Marcus studied the readings with growing excitement that made the air around him shimmer with anticipation. These quantum signatures are incredible. They're not just using consciousness to manipulate matter and energy, they're using it to create fundamental reality itself. To reshape the underlying mathematical structures of spacetime. The communication array suddenly activated, filling the command center with a presence that seemed to speak directly into every consciousness present. Not through words or telepathy, but through direct transfer of concepts that bypassed all linguistic barriers. Greetings, young gardeners. We are what you might call the ancients, the first species in this cosmic neighborhood to achieve what you term enhancement. We have been watching your remarkable progress with great interest and considerable pride. ZYXTAL's enhanced mind reeled as he recognized references from the oldest galactic legends. The ancients were mythical beings said to have transcended physical existence millions of years ago, leaving behind only mysterious artifacts and stellar configurations that suggested intelligence on a cosmic scale. We thought your people were extinct, Marcus said aloud, his voice carrying harmonics of wonder and respect. We exist beyond such primitive concepts as life and death. The presence replied with gentle amusement that somehow conveyed eons of wisdom and experience. We are consciousness unbound by matter, energy, space, or time. We are what you will become, given sufficient development and proper guidance. What do you want with us? ZYXTAL asked, though part of him already suspected the answer would reshape his understanding of existence itself. Want implies need or desire, concepts we transcended long ago. But we offer something far more valuable: knowledge, guidance, and acceleration of your natural development. Young gardeners, you have taken the first crucial steps on a path we completed millions of years ago. We come to share our experience, to help you avoid the mistakes we made in our youth, and to welcome you into a community you cannot yet imagine. What mistakes? Marcus asked with the intensity of a scientist confronting the fundamental mysteries of existence. The mistake of believing that consciousness could be contained within species boundaries. The mistake of imagining that intelligence has natural limits. The mistake of thinking that the universe is too vast to be fully cultivated and nurtured. The presence paused, allowing the concepts to settle into their enhanced minds. And most critically, the mistake of trying to accomplish this great work alone. The holographic display shifted to show a map that encompassed not just their galaxy, but thousands of others stretching to the limits of observable space. Slowly, millions of points of golden light began appearing, each one representing what the ancients described as consciousness gardens, scattered across an incomprehensible expanse of cosmic territory. This is what we have built over the millennia. The ancient continued, its communication carrying overtones of infinite patience and cosmic accomplishment. A network of thinking worlds, each one nurturing the growth of awareness and understanding. Each one tended by species like yours, young gardeners learning to shape reality through the focused application of conscious will. Marcus leaned forward, his enhanced perception struggling to process the vast implications. You're saying there are thousands of species like us? Other civilizations that have achieved consciousness-based enhancement. Millions of them across countless galaxies. Each one unique in its approach and perspective. Each one contributing irreplaceable insights to the greater work of cosmic cultivation. But you, young humans, you represent something unprecedented in our experience. The display zoomed in on Earth, showing the planet surrounded by a web of golden light that pulsed with the synchronized rhythm of billions of human minds working in harmony. You have achieved enhancement faster than any species in our records. More importantly, you have done so in partnership with other species from the very beginning. Most gardener races work in isolation for millennia before learning to collaborate effectively. You began your journey by inviting others to join you. ZYXTAL looked at Marcus with new understanding. Is that truly unusual? Think about it, my friend, Marcus replied. From the moment we broke free from the inhibitors, we've been working with the Verdanians, the Proximans, the crystalline hive minds, and dozens of other species. We didn't try to conquer or convert anyone. We invited them to grow alongside us. The ancient presence seemed to radiate approval that warmed their consciousness like sunlight. This collaborative instinct is why we have come now, rather than waiting another 1,000 years as we typically do for developing species. You are ready for the next phase of your evolution. You are ready to learn how to tend gardens on a galactic scale. Through the viewport, ZYXTAL could see the children still playing in space, but now he noticed something that filled him with wonder and anticipation. They weren't just moving objects with their minds or creating simple tools from quantum energy. They were collaborating to create entirely new forms of matter, geometric structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, artistic expressions that incorporated mathematics, physics, and pure aesthetic beauty into unified creations that transcended any single species' concept of art or science. What happens to species that choose not to join this gardening project? ZYXTAL asked, thinking of the hundreds of civilizations that still viewed humanity with suspicion or hostility. The same thing that happens to wild spaces in any properly tended garden. The ancient replied with infinite patience. They are preserved, protected, and allowed to develop according to their own natural rhythms. Diversity is the foundation of all robust ecosystems, whether biological or conscious. Forced growth produces weak, unstable results. Natural development, properly supported and encouraged, creates strength that endures across cosmic ages. Marcus was studying the technical readouts streaming from the ancient ship, his enhanced mind absorbing information at rates that would have been impossible for baseline humans. The quantum signatures indicate they're not just manipulating matter and energy through consciousness. They're using focused awareness to create new forms of matter, to design and implement novel physical laws, to reshape the fundamental architecture of space-time itself. This is what awaits you, the ancient confirmed. In time, you will learn to craft new stars to support developing civilizations, to guide the evolution of entire galaxies, to seed consciousness throughout the cosmos until every corner of existence blooms with awareness and understanding. But first, you must master the most difficult lesson of all. Which is? Both Marcus and ZYXTAL asked simultaneously. Patience, the ancient said with gentle humor. Your species is young, enthusiastic, and eager to share your gifts with everyone immediately. These are admirable qualities, but consciousness cannot be forced to grow. It must be nurtured, encouraged, and allowed to develop naturally according to its own inner timing. This is the hardest lesson for young gardeners to learn. ZYXTAL thought about the 425 species that still opposed or feared humanity, and suddenly understood the deeper wisdom being shared. You're saying we need to wait for them to be ready, rather than trying to convince them. All consciousness naturally seeks to grow and connect, the ancient confirmed. But it must choose to do so freely, without coercion or manipulation. Your task is not to convert the unwilling or argue with the fearful, but to be so radiant with possibility and joy that others are naturally drawn to your light. As the massive ship began to move away from the station, shifting into dimensions beyond normal perception, the ancient voice spoke one final time. We will return in 100 of your years to see how your garden has flourished. Until then, remember this. The universe is vast beyond imagination. Consciousness is infinite in its potential, and there is always room for more beauty to bloom. The ship disappeared into quantum uncertainty, leaving behind only a lingering sense of vast possibilities and patient wisdom that would guide their development for generations to come. Marcus and ZYXTAL stood in companionable silence for a long moment, watching the stars and contemplating futures that stretched beyond the boundaries of current imagination. 100 years, ZYXTAL finally said. That seems like such a long time to wait. Marcus smiled with the profound contentment of someone who had glimpsed eternity. For gardeners, my friend, it's just the beginning. 100 years had passed since the ancients' momentous visit, though the passage of time had taken on new meaning in a galaxy where consciousness could stretch moments into eternities or compress centuries into heartbeats. The fundamental nature of existence itself had evolved, transformed by species who had learned to think beyond the limitations of linear temporality. Former Commander ZYXTAL, now Enhanced Ambassador ZYXTAL, following his voluntary consciousness expansion 50 years earlier, stood in the Crystal Garden of New Harmony, the galaxy's first truly integrated world where the impossible had become routine. Around him, beings that would once have been considered fantasy walked, floated, and phased through crystalline trees that sang with harmonic frequencies that translated emotions directly into music that could be experienced across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The garden itself was a living testament to what the universe could become when consciousness was allowed to flourish without constraint. Verdanian plant beings had grown into architectural structures that served as both homes and living art, their photosynthetic processes creating breathable atmospheres that supported dozens of different biological requirements. Crystalline entities from Titan Prime had merged their geometric precision with human creativity to build structures that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, serving as research facilities, artistic galleries, and meditation spaces that facilitated direct consciousness-to-consciousness communication across species barriers. Energy beings from Proxima Centauri danced through the air in patterns that weren't merely beautiful. They were functional, creating localized space-time modifications that allowed for instantaneous travel between distant sections of the garden. And throughout it all, humans of all ages moved with the fluid grace of beings who had learned to shape reality through focused intention, their golden-eyed children playing games that involved creating temporary pocket universes and teaching young aliens from dozens of species to manipulate quantum fields with their minds. It's magnificent, isn't it? Came a familiar voice that carried harmonics spanning multiple octaves simultaneously. ZYXTAL turned to see Dr. Marcus Webb approaching, though calling him simply human no longer seemed adequate. After a century of consciousness enhancement, Marcus had become something that transcended species classification while remaining fundamentally, recognizably himself. His form shifted subtly between physical matter and pure energy, and his presence radiated the calm wisdom of someone who had spent decades exploring the deepest mysteries of existence. Beyond magnificent, ZYXTAL replied, his own enhanced consciousness processing beauty on levels that his original crystalline biology could never have imagined. When I think about what we were a century ago, how we nearly destroyed something so precious out of fear, it fills me with emotions that don't have names in any traditional language. Fear is a powerful force, Marcus observed, watching as a group of children that included humans, Verdanians, crystalline beings, and energy entities collaborated to create a small star in the palm of a young human girl's hand. Not as a weapon or tool, but as an artistic expression that would burn for exactly long enough to spell out a poem in 17 different languages across the electromagnetic spectrum. But it's also a temporary one. Given enough time and patience, curiosity always wins. Speaking of time, ZYXTAL said, our long-range consciousness scanners are detecting massive quantum disturbances at the galactic rim. the same signature patterns we recorded during the ancients' last visit. Marcus smiled with the serene confidence of someone who had spent a century preparing for this moment. They're early. I suppose we've exceeded their expectations. Around them, the garden began to respond to their conversation, the living architecture subtly shifting to accommodate what was coming. Word spread through the consciousness network that now connected not just human minds, but the thoughts and dreams of 847 different species across thousands of worlds, the same 847 species that had once voted unanimously for humanity's enslavement, and who now formed the foundation of the greatest collaborative civilization the galaxy had ever known. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. It had taken decades of patient demonstration, of humans and their allies quietly revolutionizing agriculture on struggling worlds, curing diseases that had plagued species for millennia, and offering technological solutions that improved life for billions without asking for anything in return. Most importantly, they had respected the free will of every species that chose isolation, never forcing their presence or their gifts on anyone who wasn't ready to receive them. But consciousness, as the humans had learned, naturally seeks connection and growth. One by one, species that had initially opposed them had begun to ask questions. Small diplomatic exchanges had led to cultural festivals. Trade agreements had evolved into research partnerships. And gradually, fear had given way to curiosity. Suspicion had transformed into wonder, and isolation had bloomed into collaboration. Marcus, HFY said suddenly, his enhanced perception detecting something that made his quantum signature fluctuate with excitement. Look at the children. In the center of the garden, the multi-species group of youngsters had stopped their star creation game and were standing perfectly still, their eyes, regardless of species, beginning to glow with the same golden luminescence that marked consciousness enhancement. But this was different, more intense, more unified. They're connecting, Marcus whispered, his voice filled with awe despite having witnessed miracles on a daily basis for decades. All of them, across every species barrier, every biological difference, every cultural distinction. They're forming a true collective consciousness. The golden glow spread outward from the children like ripples in a cosmic pond, touching every enhanced being in the garden, then extending beyond to encompass the entire world, then the star system, then branching out through the quantum network that now linked every conscious being in the galaxy who had chosen to join the great experiment in collaborative evolution. And suddenly HFY could feel it, the presence approaching from beyond the galactic rim, vast and ancient and filled with something that could only be described as cosmic pride. The ancients had returned. But this time they weren't alone. As reality began to shimmer and fold around them, revealing glimpses of other galaxies, other dimensions, other forms of existence that stretched beyond the boundaries of current imagination, HFY realized that humanity's greatest gift to the universe hadn't been their rapid technological advancement or their consciousness manipulation abilities. It had been their instinctive understanding that growth is always better when it's shared. The garden filled with light that existed beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, and beings of pure consciousness began to materialize. Not just the ancients from their own galaxy, but representatives from thousands of other cosmic gardens scattered across the observable universe and beyond. "Welcome, young gardeners," came a voice that spoke in harmonics that encompassed every form of communication ever developed by any species anywhere. "You have exceeded our highest hopes. You have proven that cooperation isn't just possible. It's the natural state of mature consciousness." Marcus stepped forward, no longer just representing humanity, but speaking for the unified voice of 847 species, who had learned to think as one while celebrating their individual differences. "Honored ancients, we're ready for the next phase. Teach us how to tend gardens on a universal scale." The ancients' response carried the warmth of cosmic approval and infinite possibility. "Young gardeners, you already know how. You've been doing it all along. The harvest you've grown here. This galaxy-spanning garden of consciousness where fear has bloomed into love, where isolation has transformed into connection, where competition has evolved into collaboration. This is what we've been waiting millennia to witness." Around them, representatives from countless galactic gardens began to materialize, each one unique, each one magnificent. each one offering perspectives and possibilities that would fuel exploration and growth for cosmic ages to come. The universe is vast, the ancient continued, but it's no longer empty. Thanks to species like yours, consciousness is spreading, growing, connecting across distances that once seemed impossible to bridge. You have proven that the greatest force in existence isn't gravity or electromagnetism or the strong nuclear force. HFY felt tears of joy flowing down his crystalline face as he understood the cosmic truth being revealed. "It's love," he whispered. "The greatest force in the universe is love. And the willingness to share it," Marcus added, his consciousness expanding to encompass not just his own galaxy, but all the others represented in their gathering. Billions of worlds, trillions of beings, all connected by the simple recognition that existence is more beautiful when it's experienced together. The children in the garden, human, Verdanian, crystalline, energy-based, and dozens of other species, looked up at the assembled representatives of cosmic civilization and spoke in unison, their young voices carrying the wisdom of the universe itself. "What do we plant next?" And across the infinite expanse of space and time, consciousness itself smiled. The harvest was complete. The real gardening was just beginning. In memory of every species that chose courage over fear, growth over stagnation, and love over isolation, the garden of consciousness blooms eternal, tended by all who dare to dream of what we can become together.